Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Stockton, and I'm here today with Jill Khoury, fellow poet and author of her new poetry collection, Earthwork, published by Switchback Books, with this absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous cover. I also have a new book coming out. We're launching around the same time. My book's called The Scarecrow of My Former Self. It's published by Moonpath Press. So Scarecrow focuses on the themes of chronic illness, loneliness, resilience, and grace. And now, Jill, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your new collection?
Oh, thank you so much. Hello and welcome, viewers. It is really good to be here. I am Jill Khoury. I am a poet, an editor, and a mixed media artist. And this book, Earthwork, is my second full-length collection with Switchback Books. And you can order this book by going to their website. This collection, Earthwork, explores, I would say, themes of mothers and daughters, childhood, family, grief, and transformation. And you'll probably hear a little bit more about that as we start to read poems.
Wonderful, thank you. So Jill and I talked over what we wanted to do today, and for our conversation, we thought we'd each read a poem from our books, which we partly chose for the way they seem to speak to each other's work. And then we'll respond to a general question we came up with that arose in response to these poems. And we'll do that twice. So I'm going to ask you, Jill, to lead us off.
Absolutely, I would love to. This is a poem called All Aspects of the Dream Are Aspects of the Dreamer. And after this poem, we're going to discuss Sarah's poem and this poem together, and we're going to talk about dreams. So here we go. All aspects of the dream are aspects of the dreamer. I spy silverware in the trees, pots and pans way down the low branches of the post oaks. She's hung whisks, metal teardrops, deflated shapes knocked together. Manic kudzu, my feet snag, and it all feels so real. Here's the entrance to her trailer inside a mouth of vines. I hear that metal rattle again and look up. She's rigged a sort of awning with knives pointed downward, cleaver, parer, deboning. Bent screen door almost comes off in my hand when I push. Inside is dim and my feet slog over the mauve carpet she hates. I mean, hated. It's swampy in here, with no AC and the blinds drawn. On the TV, an ad man shills rare coins. My mother is perched on the couch, dying properly, wrapped like a mole beast in a baby blue blanket. One claw protrudes. My therapist asks me, what does dying properly mean? And now Sarah is going to read a poem that really resonates with this one, which I think is funny because we didn't even know each other when we wrote these poems. And it just so happens that Sarah wrote Dream State in Red. Would you like to read your poem?
Yes, thanks, Jill. Dream State in Red. Every part of a dream, Jung believed, contains something of oneself. The scorpion in a sunlit corner, a bowl of rotting fruit, a faceless man pacing endlessly hospital corridors in the dark, a small child in a red dress, the virus in your veins. You are the swords in your spine. You are the pain healer, spilling potions from Jung's red book. You are is what is swallowed up. I'm sorry, read that again. You are what is swallowed up.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So we were talking and we collaboratively came up with some questions about dreaming. And so these questions include, how do dreams and their relationship to the body play a part in our collections? And how do they inspire us? So, would you like to go first or should I go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I rarely have I rarely have positive healing dreams.
Mhm.
So often for me, morning time is a relief. The dreams have been keeping me company all night, but they're not inspiring me or encouraging. They're very dark most of the time. However, during the daytime and in my writing, there's something there's a kind of dream state I can enter into. And I know readers and poets will understand this. It becomes almost an altered state, not hallucinogenic, but just something a little more enhanced than the kind of dreary existence of having a chronic illness. So dreaming for me is something that I both resist and then try to almost use to my advantage. I try to work with a kind of lucid dreaming. So that's what this poem is trying to get at, that you are what's in the dream, but you are also more than the dream.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. You are also more than the dream. It's kind of helpful when our dreams take us down to dark places. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your I noticed that you have four poems in your collection, all with the same title around dreaming. And I wondered how that came about. Did you feel like you just wanted to keep saying more about that process, or what
Well,
happened?
yeah. So when I started writing poems for this collection, it was very soon after my mother's suicide, and it was absolutely devastating, of course.
Mm.
It just exploded my reality. All of a sudden, things were possible in my world that I just hadn't conceived of before. And I think my dreams were a way for my unconscious to start processing this information. Um, and so it began as almost note taking because these dreams were so strange and vivid. And I had about, I don't know, like 8 or 9 dreams that I jotted down little notes about because they really haunted me because they were just so unusual. And so I think that the aspects of the dreamer poems, they sort of speak to this dream state that I was in following her death. It was like dissociation, not quite, everything was not quite real. There's memories that I can't get back, like things that I don't remember of that year. Um, and so I think that kind of magic, realist, dreamy state pervades this collection because I'm trying to explore something that has almost, I don't know how to say it, but like made me into a new version of myself because there is so much grief, if that makes sense.
It does.
Thanks.
That's beautiful, Jill. Thank you. The one you read too is also so visceral. You can tactile.
Oh, yeah, the
The,
landscape in sorry, the landscape in central Georgia is just very different from where I grew up in eastern Pennsylvania, and it really struck me. It's so different and strange. It was strange to me, and so it had to make its way into the poem.
yeah,
Yeah.
it permeates the poem. Okay. Are you ready to go on with our next two poems?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So I think you're going to lead us off with Here It's Eternal August.
Sure. Here it's eternal August. Amid the ferns, lilies, Venus flytraps, I pull petals from orchids, one, one, one. I brush the hairs on a flytrap, so its mouth closes on nothing. I prune roses with my teeth, swallow blood, scrawl a letter in my palm, wash it off in the black water. Hallelujah for the bracing clasp. Cold rush reminds me I'm here, and she is where? Storm shivers trees, trees beat siding, and I think it's the clatter of her arrival. Humid kitchen, I break cups and dishes against the enamel sink, black and white and red, one, one, one. In the wet dirt road I sit, attend to power line hum and cow calls from the next farm. When I laugh, gears grind, inevitable night, run me over. And for our second pair of poems, Sarah's going to read another one. She's going to read 4 a.m.
Thanks, Jill. That made me shiver, that poem. 4 a.m. It starts with the coyotes down by Duckweed Pond, yipping a feral concertina. Then the trees shift, rustling witches in their living dresses, twigs rubbing against branches like broken hip joints. The geese took flight hours before, ahead of the storm. I heard them go. I'm waiting now, window open. Light on the elder tree transitions from purple bruise to moss. I pull off my shirt, shuddering, sweat dripping. The weather vane spins in raucous screeches, and the cat is under the house, tail wrapped, scenting the incoming tide, when again something shifts. It's raining. The solitude of night's kingdom takes its tongue from my mouth, flees in the receding dark.
That really gives me chills too. You really managed to evoke quite an atmosphere with all of your image details. My goodness.
I actually wrote this at 4 a.m. You know,
The whole thing?
there's a lot of insomnia.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, this is cleaner. The first drop though came right out. I could hear coyotes. It was windy. I heard some geese go by earlier in the evening. It started raining, so I thought, okay, there's must be a reason I'm awake at 4 a.m. So
You
usually
might
I'm
as well get art.
usually I'm pretty incoherent in the middle of the but this one worked out. So
Ugh, the coyotes are haunting. So we have our collaborative question about these poems, and the question we came up with was, how have the experiences of grief, trauma, and loneliness impacted the process of writing poems? So I think in both of our shivery poems, you can feel the isolation, you can feel the loneliness. So
yeah. Um, yeah,
so for
I
me,
think this question permeates our entire collections. Yes, it's
I think it does. I think it does.
yeah.
Um, so this for the going back to the idea of writing poems and how does grief or like and loneliness influence that? Um, I had a lot of time where I was writing quite fluidly in the beginning when I think my grief was new to me. And then years went on and I couldn't at some point something shifted. And I think when I made this little rough collection of poems into a book form just to see what it would look like, I got so scared by the idea of telling this really vulnerable story. And I honestly, I was still really actively grieving years later. And so this is why Earthwork took 10 years from start to finish, because there were a lot of years where I was like, this is so heavy. I'm still feeling impacted by it. How can I ever send this out into the world? I can't let it become an art object yet because I'm not done feeling it.
Hmm.
Um, does
Wow. Yeah, that speaks very profoundly to me, Jill. I had a similar process. The title poem of my book was published, I think 10 years ago.
Mhm,
And I don't even think I realized at the time I was writing about illness. I didn't even understand the image or the title
mhm.
completely. And it was over the course of time. I have to write very slowly because of being sick. So over the course of time, I felt like the symbology was revealing itself to me. And like you, I find it difficult to even talk about chronic illness with people I know, the experience of it, never mind putting it down on paper. Um, and I feel like in some ways I'm still hiding in my book. And that there are things where I know there's a phrase in a poem and I'll think, wow, that represents so much more than I'm actually saying. Of course, that's the
Mhm.
gift of poetry, but
Yeah,
so in a way I feel very revealed, and yet I also feel like it's still a gloss. It's still private.
right.
Um,
Yes, that makes sense. Tip of the iceberg, kind of.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think like you, it felt I don't want to speak for you, but it feels like an important part of the process to
Mhm.
translate this experience onto the page and shape
Oh,
it
well, yeah.
and then send it out.
I mean, well, it's amazing because we both started with pain and we both made art. And, you know, this was really, I mean, it was really hard, but it was really transformative to
Yeah,
tackle such a big subject. Yeah,
yeah, I
definitely.
agree.
Mhm.
All right. Are we good? Shall we move on?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, we could talk all day, but
I know. I feel like that subject, grief and the process of writing poems and loneliness, that I I wonder there are probably a lot of people out there who could relate to that.
I think so. I think it's certainly as an editor, we're both editors. We've read a lot of poetry uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's been sent to us, and it's a repeating theme.
Common theme. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I think it'd be nice if you read a poem that just I think you've chosen a poem from your collection that you would like to read, not necessarily in conversation with mine, but to share with us.
Yeah. I chose a poem that kind of represents, it's like a touchstone of the collection. It kind of touches on some themes that are prevalent throughout, and it's called Curtain, Colic, Bassinet, Calf. Curtain, Colic, Bassinet, Calf. The infant's howl strafes the mother's earthwork. The mother's mare has flown into the eaves and nested. The infant is captured in a rogue wave. Out back, the cornfield crackles. The mother swaddles her own head in curtains, one eye on the twilight. The infant is a webbed variation in cipher, whipped and willow. The mother battles disequilibrium, her eyes remote, her taut facsimile smile. The infant's movement is a snarl up, unhinged her crisis face. The mother's bloom drains southward. The skin on her torso starts to prickle. In the cell of their new house, a cornice cracks. Each day, the branches advance. Um, and so I chose this poem because it is kind of a big representative of the themes of like a great love, like having shared a body of the mother and daughter, but also a conflict that is starting pretty early in life. And that really resonates throughout the rest of the collection from the speaker's childhood all the way up through her adulthood.
Yeah, really powerful. It's a poem to sit with and read again and
Yeah,
again. Different every time I read it, something new some comes out.
that's the beauty of language, really.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Especially a distilled poem like that,
Mhm.
where it's not being we're not being given so much information that we don't need to invest ourselves in it.
Right.
I like when there's space, so we're invited into the poem like that.
Thanks. I like writing poems where there's a little mystery. It's not all explained.
Right.
Yeah. And so you also chose a poem, didn't you, from your collection that you would like to read?
I did. I'm going to read the title poem. It's a shape poem.
Mhm.
As you can see, maybe you can't see.
I can see it.
It's
Ah.
supposed to mimic the scarecrow getting down and
Mhm.
walking around. The scarecrow of my former self. The scarecrow of my former self dislodges from her pole and walks on stilts, crossing untouched over roadside ditches filled with mud, blood, and broken glass. She's a straw dancer with raven claws, rustling cloak, and apple blossom grace. She stalks the fields of my memories, scattering swarms of regret. Poised on the horizon, barnwood limbs outstretched, beckoning. Why is she wearing that ridiculous hat? I must go and see. The crows fly to greet us as we waltz against the thunderous sky.
What a banger of a poem to end the book on. My goodness. No, seriously, the I love this scarecrow's journey throughout the book. I mean, she starts out in the beginning quite differently, and wow, look where she ends up. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
wanted
love that.
to leave with some hope. Um, this I feel like when I wrote this, it was like a promise to myself, which I probably didn't even understand at the time. So
I love the image that she's walking on stilts and she has barnwood limbs. This is a serious scarecrow. This is not your ordinary scarecrow.
well, and the interesting thing, Jill, is at one point I was, as we do, I was Googling scarecrows,
Uh-huh.
and the image first came to me because my son, interestingly enough, had told me about he'd had a dream about a scarecrow, and I took off from that. And later I thought I was remembering scarecrows I'd made, when I was a child or at Halloween, and I was looking them up, and they're pretty universally either androgynous or male,
Mhm.
and they're
I
either scary or like a Halloween cartoonish figure.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I thought, well, I never saw it that way. It was me. It was me walking around. So it was kind of an empowering thing to reclaim this
Yeah,
image too. So
love that.
thanks. Yeah. Well, this was really fun. For the
This was fun.
How
I
about you flash us your book one more time and tell us where.
Well, this is Earthwork, and it came out from Switchback Books. You can order it on the Switchback Books website. And
And
my
it's
name is
available now or it's pre-order right now?
Oh, it's available
It's
already.
available
Yeah.
now. Okay,
And how
great.
about you? How about you?
My book is The Scarecrow of My Former Self, Moonpath Press, and it is available now. There's an official launch with the press on April 7th, but I'll put that on my website, sarahstockton.com. You can find links to order the book, or you can go to moonpathpress.com, and there will also be ways to order it there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing this time with me.
Yeah, thank you, Jill, for answering the call when I said, hey, do you want to try this?
Oh, I think it's fun. I think
It is fun.
it's a poetic experiment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you to everyone who is
Thank you.
watching and took the time to go on this journey with us. Thank
Mhm.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.